Hello and welcome to our kitchen table. I'm sitting here with my wife, your therapist, and you asked for it, so we're going to do it. We're going to tell you how we met. We're going to tell you how we met, how we courted, how we were friends for many years, then we dated for a while, and then we were engaged, and then we got married. It's a process that is unheard of amongst two human beings: friendship, dating, engagement, and marriage. But yeah, we had a few people who listen to the podcast reach out and ask us how we met. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to tell y'all how we met and maybe glean some learnings along the way. Some things that I think we did well, some things that I don't think we did well, and maybe some of that wisdom would be of use to the folks who are tuning in. So as always, my name is Price, and I married your therapist.
I'm Ash, and I'm your therapist. Let's get into it.
Ash, how old were we when we met?
16.
So we're both pedophiles?
Not when you're both 16.
What do you want the people to know about how we met?
We met both far away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to tell them where we were?
Okay, so I was fortunately homeschooled my entire life. We've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. And I was a very cool guy who had a lot of lady friends.
You sound very cool.
I did competitive speech and debate. I traveled quite often for it. Mm-hmm. It actually was a pretty good time. But it was it was very nerdy.
I think it has served you very well in your life that you did it.
I'm very good at presentations at work now. Very good at presentations at work. Anyways, we had a tournament in Columbia, South Carolina, mm-hmm. that I went to. One of many such events that I've participated in my life. And you, Ash, you happened to be there. Yep. I was coming up from Florida. You were coming over from North Carolina. And we met in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And we were 16. And it was love at first sight. And that's the end of that.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I'll share my first memory of you.
Okay.
The first time I remember you, and then you can share your first memory of me.
Okay.
So I was, COVID wasn't even a speck in your eye at this point, but This college campus it was Columbia International University.
Another decade away is what it was.
A decade before COVID, Columbia International University had hand wash stations all over their campus. Hand sanitizing stations, sorry. And this was back before the COVID, right? And so hand sanitizer used to pack a punch, right? Imagine it's like the 1980s and you're 100 years old and you grew up in the 1880s and you remember when Coca-Cola had cocaine in it.
Right.
And you're drinking it now in the 80s and you're like, this is bullshit. Well, that's how I feel about hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer used to fuck you up.
I don't know that I knew that. You felt that way.
So my first memory.
It also was much more rare to have hand sanitizer stations somewhere.
It was kind of odd. So I'm a very withdrawn, shy person. Yeah. So I walked up to a hand sanitizing station and put my hand under it and it just dispensed hand sanitizer. And I held it up to my face and I took a big whiff of it and I said, I sure do love these get high stations all over campus. And you were there there was a large group of people, many of them I did not know. And I just said that and everybody laughed. Was that a Freudian slip?
A little bit.
The thing about being cool in a group of speech and debate people is that you just have to be confident. That's all. You just have to. You don't actually have to be cool. You just have to have some confidence.
Confident and saying something a little bit unexpected. It was super edgy at the time, what you said.
At that point in time with that group of people, I was kind of riding that line. I was kind of out there. I was kind of edgy. Right. I was an edgy kid.
You were so edgy.
Huffing hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But you were there.
I was there.
I thought that you were very cute.
Aww.
Yeah.
Yep, I
So
remember.
that's why we got married.
So that's why we got married. I was talking to a group of friends, the people that I had come down there with, and suddenly this random kid comes up and huffs some hand sanitizer in front of us and says that. And then I think that you stood there and you kept making jokes and people like kept laughing. And it was clear that you were cool in the way that people are cool in that
when they're
setting.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you give a speech the next day. And then because my friends were doing similar things to what you were doing, I kept seeing you. And I don't
Like
remember.
seeing me debate, seeing me give speeches.
I kept seeing you give speeches. I kept seeing you do debates. And I really liked the speech that you gave. And I became very familiar with it. I think at the time I could have almost given it.
Yeah, you specifically like sought me out and sought this particular speech out, and you were coming to like watch it. So it was a persuasive speech. That's the topic, or the category of competition was a persuasive speech. You're trying to convince the audience of an idea or of something. Yeah. Like I heard one that was like a persuasive speech on why we needed an icon on our keyboard to convey sarcasm. Mm-hmm. It was a really good. I was totally.
So they were everything from like very serious to sort of like funny like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My persuasive speech at the time was. I know toxic masculinity wasn't even like a phrase that was being used.
Certainly not that we knew about.
Yeah, not in my world at all. But I was definitely like questioning why men couldn't be better friends without everybody thinking they were gay.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of crazy. So I talked about like the man hug and how you like clasp hands and like two firm backs, like back pats.
Yeah, not more than that.
Not more than that, because any more than that would be fucking gay. Like, and so I was just kind of questioning that, and then I was just talking about like examples of like real masculine friendships and how important it is for men to have like to be friends with other men, and how when we say that that's gay, it's belittling.
Yeah.
Like, because in the world that I lived in, we actually were calling that gay.
Right. Gay
and that
was
was a
like
very
a
bad
common
thing to
term.
be.
Yeah.
And, I was kind of like questioning that in this like very religious, very super strict community. And although I don't know if I stand by, or I think that my feelings on that topic has evolved quite a bit over the years, but I am still pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
But what did you think of me based off of that?
So when I first saw you, you were in a very cute purple shirt and purple tie, giving this persuasive speech, starting off with an example of a man hug and talking about why you wished boys could be closer to one another. And you were cute and scrawny, and I was like, oh, he's gay. Which, to be fair, I didn't realize I was gay, and there was probably some projection going on, because I think at the time, something I really longed for was closer female friendships where you were allowed to just like sit and cuddle and hug people and have that not considered being gay, and I was. So anyway, I think it was some projection going on. But by the end of the speech, I didn't feel that way about you, or I didn't suspect that of you. And I immediately liked you giving the speech. And you immediately, I think, became very safe to me.
What do you mean?
Well, I've heard this thing about like a litmus test where if you're seeing a guy, have him hold your purse for a minute, like while you go to the bathroom or something. And if he puts the purse on his shoulder and holds it, he's like a safe person. And if he holds it out from his body, like the feminine energy is going to somehow permeate his system. Like, get all the way away from that man.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that. Like, you just had such sensitivity in the topic. I think you were talking about something that really needed to be talked about, really felt like it was impacting the way that I saw the boys in my life, the young men in my life interact. And I immediately liked that. I trusted you, and I started to seek out seeing you give that speech because I liked it and I liked you.
Nice.
I wasn't immediately attracted, but at the time,
we're still working on that.
At the time, I was definitely somebody dealing with issues and was pursuing. I felt like I was going to end up with a man much older than me, which now I think is kind of scary.
Are you talking about this theoretically, or are you talking about a real person?
At the time I was talking to somebody, I was 16 and I think he was 20. So then down the road, what happened between the two of us is that at another tournament or two later, we saw each other again, and you were babysitting, which again was very endearing to me. And we just like hung out and played on the elevator with the kid that you were babysitting and like ran around this campus, and it was a great time. And you were just like so, again, safe and lovely. And I don't mean...
Yeah, I didn't think much of it at the time, but like this mother let me like gave me her 2-year-old for like the week. Like
Yeah.
I just like looked after and took care of like a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Pretty often.
I didn't know a 16. I think at that point, maybe you were 17. We were right around your birthday. I didn't know. I hadn't seen a situation quite like that before.
Yeah.
And
Didn't
it
even strike me as
immediately made
weird
sense.
until like years later that
Yeah.
was happening. Because I was just, I don't know. I was always watching kids. I'm good with kids.
Yeah. Something that stood out to you is that you were watching her and you made a joke about, I think you were like sitting at a table and were taking care of her, and you made a joke about like if somebody would run and get you a sandwich from the little sandwich line that they had. And I was like, okay. And I ran over and I got you a sandwich and I got you all the different condiments that they had. But within a couple tournaments, you told me that you liked me. And you were so sincere. And I had never encountered a boy be that direct and that sincere before. And like I said, I was talking to a 20-year-old at the time who could only text me and who could not look me in the eyes and have a conversation with me. So I was pretty taken aback. I don't think I believed you.
I didn't just tell you I liked you though.
You told me your like 10-point plan.
I was like, look, I'm 16, you're 16, you live in North Carolina, I live in Florida. Here's the deal. I'm going to graduate college when I turn 8. By the time I turn 18.
Yep.
I'm going to get married. I want to have a family.
You said I'm going to get married when I'm 19.
I want to get married when I'm 19, and I want to like get my life going.
Yeah.
You know.
And I said, who's going to be ready to do that with you?
And I was like, hopefully you. Like, I want to do this with you.
Yeah.
We barely knew each other.
Barely knew each other.
Yeah. I did graduate college when I was 18. I did not get married when I was 19.
I knew something about that. I did not doubt that you would graduate when you were 18, though.
Yeah,
that was
it
unquestionable.
was much later. I got married 22.
Years later.
Years. Literally years.
Several whole years later.
Yeah, but I was dead fucking serious. I was like, look. Because I've always felt like you find somebody that you like gel with, that there's like a foundational like mutual respect and admiration for it, and then you can work out the rest of it. I've never felt like you find your soulmate. Mm-hmm. You know, people are like, oh man, you and Ash are like soulmates. Like, nah, no, I don't really believe in that. I think that it's like you can purposefully become a soulmates with somebody, but I don't think anybody falls into that. That's ridiculous. Yeah. You know, what a ridiculous notion.
I'm with you. I don't believe in soulmates later. And so after that conversation, I don't even think I directly said no, but you understood my no.
Yeah.
I think I had a hard time voicing that because I felt, one, so caught off guard, again, to be like spoken to with that much sincerity from somebody. But you were good. You took that very well and kindly, and we remained friends, and we talked on the phone a lot. And during those phone conversations, I remember talking to you about soulmates and that, like, no, it's something you work together at. It's something you build and grow, and not something that like that's your magic person. And yeah.
Yeah, I think people who talk about this person is my soulmate. I'll say this. I have never met somebody who has been in a long-term relationship who refers to their partner as their soulmate. I only hear people talk about that in the context of like a new relationship that is like so exciting, and you're infatuated with the other person.
Right.
They're my soulmate. Like, yeah, you think that now. But like, there have been a number of mornings that Ash, you have like woken up and been like, this motherfucker. I got to do it with him today. Fuck. Because that's a long-term relationship, you know.
I don't really feel that way. But yeah, I think that's certainly, you wake up and you choose to do it together anyway. You choose to like be in it together. And I've always had the confidence that you were in it with me, even when I didn't wake up and I was like, this dude's my soulmate today. I learned that in some cultures, the idea of soulmate is the idea that you grow into something together. You become soulmates, not that you like
I would agree with that.
Run into your soulmate on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did our relationship look like to you as we were just kind of friends? 16, 17, 18, you know. You kind of went back to your life. I went back to mine.
So there were a couple of things that really stood out to me early on. One was you having that sort of conversation with me and also not being offended by. I had definitely had conversation because I wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. And then I still kind of wasn't allowed to date. And I had to tell boys no before and tell boys that like, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to date. And then they did not want to talk to me anymore. And you did. You were like, okay, well, I like you. Like, I want to continue to be in your life. And so that made that easier to believe. And the next thing that really like impressed me is that you called, and at the end of some phone call, I was like, okay, I'll talk to you later. And then I didn't call you later. And so you called or you texted, and you're like, what did you mean when you said I'll call you later? Or I'll talk to you later? And I was like, really honest for some reason. I said, I'll happily answer the phone if you call me again. And you're like, okay, I'll do that. And you were just very much willing to show up to the friendship in the way that I needed. And I wasn't like a pain in the ass, or you didn't make it out to be that way for me to need that from somebody.
Yeah, I think that this has gotten me in hot water plenty of times, so I can't recommend it as like blanket advice, but you all gotta stop sweating like, when should I text him? When should I call him back?
Yeah.
Like, y'all kind of should just feel welcome to like follow your heart a little bit on that. Yeah. Mainly because if you're not just yourself from the beginning, if you're putting on like this version of you, then you never give that person a chance to like actually like you, right? It's this like heavily curated, monitored version of you that's not calling when you feel like you should. Now, of course, some of y'all are going to be like, I'm going to call him then. And that's like a bad idea. And you know who you are and you know it's a bad idea. I'm not trying to send anyone loose. Dear God, those poor people receiving those phone calls. Like, oh my fuck. Like
if
40
all
times
the friends
today.
in your life are like, please stop doing this. That's not, we're not talking to you.
Yeah, but I think that so many people like let relationships slip them by because they're just too paralyzed to like take any action. I
had so much fun going out. Like, how many days should I wait to text back or to talk about hanging out again or to do whatever? And it was, or like, how long should I wait to talk about X, Y, or Z future things that I care about? Yeah. It's like, you care about those things right now, and it doesn't help you if in 3 months you have that conversation and then things don't work out. That just sucks.
Or the people who are afraid to like, I want to take this to a romantic place, but I don't want to ruin my friendship. Like, who said that doing like trying to go there and getting rejected ruins the friendship? Like if you ask somebody like when you're 16 and you pseudo ask somebody you barely know to marry you and they say no, like that easily for a lot of people would have been like, okay, well now there's no chance for a friendship. But that was never on my mind. Like I never even processed that. It was like, okay, well let's just be friends then. Like if you don't, you know.
You not only fully pursued the friendship after that, but you never until later. You didn't go back on that. You weren't like, are you sure you don't want to date me? Like, shouldn't we date? I was just allowed to be friends with you. And that was very nice. That was relieving.
Because I moved on to like other people. Right. Like I was like, okay, Ashlyn was a no.
Moving on with my life.
But now I have this beautiful friendship and I liked other people and dated other people. You liked other people and dated other people. And we talked to each other about those things. And that was nice.
So things that were special in our friendship were, one, just the really, and this is just like you, I now know thoroughly, but you were just so yourself and so open and honest and sharing. And you did not accept any less from me. I think that it was easy at the time for me to just like laugh along with people. I was masking heavily. I was traumatized. Like I had this stuff going on, but you really wanted to know my answer to the question. And it didn't have to be your answer to the question. We didn't have to be on the same page for everything. And we just really both got to be open and honest with each other. And I feel like you specifically, thank you, Trouble, the cat, specifically created a space where we could do that.
Well, it was nice because you had this friendship where you existed outside of the bounds of like everything else in my life.
That was a big deal.
So it was like I had somebody I could call to bounce anything off of, and it had no real impact on my life. Just because sometimes when you call a friend for advice or call a friend and say like I'm struggling with something, just by admitting that, it changes. Like your life has to have some sort of change because now this friend is like knows and maybe will tell other people. Like you, it was like a vacuum. I could speak to you about anything, and that had no impact on anything at all. It was just whatever good advice or comfort you had for me as a friend, and then I was able to take that back to my life.
It got to create a lot of like trust in that environment. It was very easy to talk about those things. And it was easy to talk about hard things with you, and I don't think either one of us expected the other to like solve it. I'd also had a lot of friendships where I was the therapist, and I didn't talk about myself, and also I just like helped them through their problems, and we could like share, and it was mutual. And I think that that's your relationships, whether it's a friendship or a dating relationship, should feel like mutual. You're giving and you're taking, and that's a good thing. Anything else stand out to you about the friendship part of that?
No, not really. It was just easy. It was just easy and nice, and I made an effort to reach out pretty regularly. I didn't.
You did.
Because it slips away. Like somebody who doesn't live in your life and you're not organically like meeting up with them at any point. There's got to be some intentionality to it. But when I called you, you showed up. Like you were also there,
Yeah, I feel like we both played a role in that. You certainly did the reaching out, but I really tried to make myself available when you had the time because it was great to hear from you. The other thing that was interesting about that time is that I think you and I were forming a lot of the opinions and beliefs we would have about marriage down the road. We were talking a lot about what marriage meant to us. And we were both people who thought about that a lot because we both cared a lot about it. We both knew we wanted to get married to somebody else one day.
Yeah.
But I think that I spoke out loud for the first time a lot of my future beliefs about marriage.
Yeah, I think that people underestimate like how important it is to just talk through what you believe and why, and like how good that is to like get that stuff out with anybody, because that helps you like evaluate it in a new way. I was more myself as a result of my friendship with you, because I was able to like better articulate how I felt about things because I had a friend to talk it through with. And that was cool.
Yeah, and able to get, again, feedback in a way that wasn't, like we were allowed to disagree on things and just ask good questions and be like, okay, well, what about in this situation? What would you do here?
I can't stress enough, though, you and I were not flirting during this. There was not a romantic part of this that we kept alive. We were actually just friends. And that was completely respectful to the other relationships that we were pursuing at the time. Not that
And there was no jealousy involved or anything. Like you would call and be like, Ashlyn, I'm in love with this girl. And I'd be so excited. I deeply felt excited for you with that sort of thing and wanted to hear about it, but not be involved. And like, but yeah, it wasn't flirtatious.
Yeah, it was great. Then we can kind of move on to dating. I fast forward a few years. You're going to school in Birmingham.
You're in Tallahassee.
I live in Tallahassee. And you had like a free weekend or something?
So that summer, you and I had talked more than we had in a while. I think that things would go back and forth over the years in our relationship. That summer, we both went through breakups.
Yeah, totally separate, but at the same time.
Yeah, basically. Totally separate, happened to be at the same time. So we had been talking more often. And it was just a weekend. I don't think it was a free weekend in particular.
I do remember this, literally having a light bulb moment where you and I are talking and kind of comforting each other through these breakups and reminiscing on all the conversations we've had about the ways that we wanted our relationships to go. And then I had this moment where I was like, man, I just wish I could date somebody like you, Ash.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wait, what are you doing? What are
It
you
was
up to?
really
right
the
now?
first time that had come up at that point.
Years later, like several
Right.
years later, after the initial kind of like asking you if you wanted to date.
We were 20. I was a sophomore in college.
Okay. Yeah. So 4 years later, it comes back up, and it like comes back up with a vengeance, right?
Yeah. Well, suddenly as much as I don't know that I was still on board. I'm so cautious with everything in my life, and especially was cautious around any sort of relationships. I had not really had an official relationship. Everything had been a situationship sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was definitely cautious about it, but for the first time, once it was like, this makes sense, it was like, oh, this really makes sense. Except we're hours away from one another, and I'm in school and you're working and living in Tallahassee.
And I'm like, if you come down here, you remember this?
I do. I remember sitting in the car hearing you say this.
We were talking about like you coming down to visit, and I was like, just be warned, if you come down here, you're gonna fall in love with me. And you came down, and you fell in love with me. Maybe not that weekend, but
I was like, okay. And then you made a Pride and Prejudice reference. You called me one of those characters, or not Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I packed my car and I drove down, and we were just going to spend the weekend together and see how that went.
you heard it here, boys. Jane Austen, read up.
That really, I think, pushed it over the edge for me.
How am I not gay? I still don't understand.
Some switch wasn't flipped, so you're the most like not gay person I know, and also
Yeah, extremely gay.
yeah. But the Jane Austen really did it for me, and so I drove down, and I am on my way to Tallahassee in the middle of the night. I am not someone who does impulsive things at all for any moment in my life. I'm too much on the other side of that. And I'm driving down, and I get very close to Tallahassee, and I'm calling you to let you know I'm almost there, and you are not waking up because it's the middle of the night and you have to work in the morning, and you were a heavy sleeper. And I was like, I haven't seen this person. We had seen each other just a handful of times over the years. And I was like, what have I done? Why did I do this? But then you did wake up and you called me back, and we had a really nice weekend. You like worked, I had homework. It was not filled with like fun and frivolity specifically, but we like had a really nice time. And we went on, I think, our first, it wasn't even like a date. We just went out and had food together.
Yeah. No, I remember like that. So then we started dating shortly after. There's a lot of driving back and forth between Birmingham and Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. And then over the summer, instead of moving back home, you came and stayed with me over the summer, which was incredible.
Yeah.
I'd never cohabitated with a partner before.
We felt really like this was going to be a make or break situation. I remember you saying like, we're going to see if this works when we're together every day. Because before that, I mean, when you're dating somebody long distance and you're just having these very special weekend trips that feel fun and magical, it's really easy to go, oh, real life doesn't work.
Anybody can have a great weekend together.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Everybody's on their best behavior, having a fun time away from their other daily life tasks.
Donald Trump could show me a good time for a weekend. You know? I could put aside all my prejudice against him, and like we can have a nice time. Take me to Mar-a-Lago. Let's play some golf. You know?
Ew. But it really worked.
Not Joe Biden, though. He's too sleepy. Sleepy Joe Biden.
Oh, my God.
I bet Kamala Harris is a good time.
Who else is on your mind, Bryce?
No, I'm good.
Okay. But it really worked. It really worked when we were together.
Why did it work? What did we do?
We've always made a good team. And I think we really filled in for each other. Like, you were working so much, and I was doing a lot to like tidy the place that we were living and keeping up with kind of chores and to-dos, so that when you got home we had a lot of free time together. And then when I started working that summer, you started splitting things with, like, we figured that out. We managed that. I think that we kept things fun without going overboard. Like, we found ways to have fun that weren't expensive because we had no money.
One time we found a $20 bill in a jacket pocket of mine, and it changed our whole weekend.
Changed the whole weekend.
Yeah. It was, things were tight. We were both working very hard, and we were good. We had a good time together, and we had this like motto early on, which was that we're just people. I'm just a person.
I
Remember
think that
that?
made a
Remember
big
saying
difference.
that to each other?
We said that all the time to one another. We're just people. Because so many of the early, I think, conflicts that happen in a relationship aren't about a big thing happening. Maybe are even hard to name exactly what went wrong.
Yeah.
Or you just do something silly, and the other person would be like, we're just people. We're just figuring it out. And we were allowed to not be perfect.
We didn't take it too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like it was very intentional.
We were very serious about one another, but we didn't take each moment too seriously.
Yeah,
we were
like
allowed to be humans.
Yeah, if I fucked up, I'm just a person. Like, my bad. I'm just a person.
Yeah.
Let's do better, you know? And the same grace was extended to you. Then I moved up to North Carolina to be closer with you, and I had a job opportunity up there through you and your family.
Yep.
That didn't pan out.
No. No fault of your own, but it was a nightmare situation.
Thank you for clarifying. It was not my fault.
It was not your fault.
It did not pan out. Then I found out that a family member got sick, so I moved back to Jacksonville to be with them. We kept seeing each other as much as we could.
I started driving 9.5 hours to come see you.
That was difficult for you,
on
man.
weekends.
That was difficult for you. And then we got engaged.
Yep.
My family was like, ask this woman to marry you. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, make this happen. Everybody loved you.
Oh, that was something that really helped the relationship too, that not everybody gets, is that your family was very accepting and welcoming of me. I immediately felt included in that. It was easy to be around you guys. Not the same for my family, which is why we ended up mostly being around your family at that time. Because it was easy to be included in that way.
Well, I saw you getting like abused by your family firsthand, and I questioned it. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, you can't talk to her like that. And your dad's like, I can talk to her. How shall I?
Shockingly didn't love that.
Yeah.
He didn't love that.
Yeah, they treated me like shit as a result. I mean, they were already treating you like shit, but then they're like, the ISR got turned onto me.
It's Price's fault.
Yeah, Price is the reason that Ash is like, acting up, and all you were doing is just trying to live your life, Oh man, we with a ferocity tried to like absorb all of our own bills. I wasn't trying to rely on anybody because your parents were like, they were still like paying your phone bill at the time, I think, and the car that you were driving was still in their name, and they were constantly lording that stuff over you. Like, we can take your car away, we can, So I was like, you got on my phone bill pretty quickly, and because I just didn't want anyone to leverage like financial control over us.
At a time where that was challenging to do. We were both making a lot of sacrifices to be able to make that possible and get that switched over so that we can.
Totally on our own, paying all of our own bills. I was making $15 an hour at the time, which I felt like was pretty good money. It
felt solid, yeah.
Granted, it's not, the bills then aren't what the bills are now.
No,
I recognize
not.
that, but it was tight. We didn't have a lot of extra money for sure. Yeah.
I think something else that went really well during this whole process is that you and I did not shy away from talking about tough things. When something was going on, we brought it up.
Yeah, I meet people sometimes who are like, well, what do you talk about with your partner when you get home from work? Like, oh, we just shoot the shit, small talk. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I get home, I'm like, Ash, I heard another concerning piece of news about the climate change, and I'm having an existential crisis. So, let's talk about that,
That stuff, and also what was hard between each other. Like, early on in the relationship, we we dated quickly-ish after these other relationships had ended, and there's processing that goes on early in a relationship. Again, nothing was like inappropriate there, but it was to where you're still grieving, and also
You're grieving the old
you're
relationship.
still grieving the old relationship, and also starting a new relationship, which I honestly think happens for almost everybody. There's stuff you can only grieve within a new relationship. You're like, oh yeah, this is what that was like, or this is what I wasn't getting. And we were very open about that. We were very open about our past stuff.
And that was possible because we came in as friends.
Yeah.
We already knew each other. And that's why we didn't date for a long time, about a year before we got engaged. That didn't feel foolishly quick because I already had known you so well for long.
Years.
And then dating you, living with you just reaffirmed the things that I knew were true of you. Right? There wasn't a lot that was catching me by surprise.
That's what I was going to say. What I kept saying at the time was working well between us is that nothing was coming up that was a surprise. Everything fit into who I already knew you to be, even when I learned new information. It was like, yep, this fits into who I know Price to be and how I know him to handle things. The other thing that I kept saying, which was shocking to me coming from the background that I did, was that we don't fight about the same things again and again. Now, over the course of all of these years together, some of the same things have come up again and again. But during that period of time, when we were done with something, we had really talked it the whole way through, really thoroughly apologized. Everybody had taken their responsibility for whatever happened. And then it was done. And I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know that existed. And it was great.
Yeah. Well, let's not paint too rosy of a picture. Some of those fights were fucking awful.
Some of them were awful.
They did get dealt with appropriately, but I'm not trying to say that like it was all, oh, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you said that. I think it's really important that as much as there was stuff that was going really well, as much as we did things well, we understood each other well, we came in with a lot of background knowledge, that stuff still hurts. Like what's happening in a really close relationship is that you've been open enough that stuff is touching at your most vulnerable parts. And the more you're trusting somebody, the more you can feel that awareness that this person could really hurt me. And while I trusted you, I didn't think you were out to hurt me. You can get really deeply wounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important not to overlook the severity also of what was tough.
Well, I think a lot of people don't. Something people need to be reminded of. I need to be reminded of is that loving somebody is a decision that you make. Mm-hmm. You choose to love somebody. Feelings come and go. I don't always. I can't. I don't want to assert control or verbalize that I control my emotions. I do not. Mm-hmm. I respond to them. Uh-huh. I feel the things that I feel based off of external stimuli, and my response to those feelings is what I'm responsible for.
Yeah, but the emotions come up. That's what happens as a human.
Exactly. Sometimes you piss me off. There have been days where I don't like you. Uh-huh. There have been days where I do like you. But to say that based off of a feeling, I no longer am in love with you, or I no longer love you, is fucked up and a wrong way to look at it. I have decided to love you. That is a choice that I make. You make that choice as well. That's a decision that we make daily, is to love one another and to show love to one another. And that is the foundation of this, not a feeling that is liable to change at any time.
Yeah.
Based off of your actions. You might be kind of shitty to me one day, and I may not be feeling the vibe. Right. But that doesn't mean that this relationship is over.
And I think that was something that really strengthened the relationship, is that even when things weren't good, even when we were really struggling together, I knew you had my back. Like there were times when we would be fighting and then something would happen in one of our lives, and in mid-fight we'd reach out to the other person. Yeah. And we were able to set this, okay, this is not done. I'm still pissed at you. Right. But also I love you, and how can I be here for you?
It's like the cartoon with like the old couple that are like mad at each other, but it starts raining and the husband's like, holding out
like
the
holds the
umbrella, but
umbrella.
they're like still pissed
Right.
at each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were still holding the umbrella even when we were really pissed. I say all of the time, but you come into a relationship speaking different languages. And the fact that we had overall similar upbringings, similar sorts of like families and beliefs and backgrounds and all of that, there was a lot of us just not realizing the other person was speaking a different language, assuming that we would be on the same page and then being shocked when we were talking about two different things.
I don't think we can understate this enough, or I don't think we can overstate this enough.
Yeah.
The similar backgrounds, years of close, purposeful communication
Yes.
with one another. I knew you well going into this.
Yeah.
And it has been years of us being married. Like, and when I say we're married, like we're fucking married.
So married.
It's been years of still learning and figuring out the ways that we communicate and the ways that we operate. I don't think anybody can underestimate how important it is to view that as like a journey, as a process, and not just like okay, I get you now, we're done, like case closed, we're moving on.
Yeah.
You know,
Sorry.
we're a great example of having a very strong foundation going into a marriage or going into a relationship, and still really needing to work on those things and like requiring
Still having to be
lot
very
of focus.
active in working on those things.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, now I've forgotten the thing I was going to say about that. There are a lot of internal and external factors for that, though. Like a lot of things that play into that. In life, I think it is to one's detriment to decide that you know everything, that you're done learning. And in a relationship, I think it is to the relationship's detriment that you decide you know everything about your partner. I know you thoroughly, and I want to hear your opinion on things.
Oh, it's disrespectful.
I
know
You're a
everything.
changing, growing, learning human.
Boy.
Exactly.
I'm a changing, growing boy.
Right.
Yeah, it's disrespectful because like you don't even know you all the way. Like you're constantly like you're in flux, right? You're constantly in motion in terms of who you are, and it's disrespectful to assume that you know everything. I know how they're going to respond, you know? No.
And you really rob, when you've decided you know how somebody's going to respond, you really rob yourself of that moment of connection, and you really rob the other person from getting to actually show up to the relationship. Like now it's just you and the imaginary other person having a relationship instead of you and the real growing boy in front of you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Any general advice that you would give to folks who... Any mistakes that you think that we made that other people can avoid, or anything that we got particularly right that people should emulate?
I think the open and honest communication was so important. And by that, I don't mean constant communication. I mean open communication about the things that matter, the things that are really going on.
I would prefer the word purposeful for what you're describing.
I think purposeful is a great word to describe that as.
Intentional.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then being really intentional in the way that you respond to your partner. If they're bringing up something in the relationship and that's not the way you see it, expect that they're bringing it up because they care about the relationship.
Right.
Like we don't talk about the hard stuff if we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And if your partner's like, hey, the way that you do this really impacts me, and you're like, that's not what I do, or that's not what I mean by that, you've missed it. You've missed the chance. We don't have to all agree on what happened to be able to go, oh, I see you caring about this. I care about it too, and I want to show up together.
Yeah.
Being friends, if you don't get to start off as friends, fair, that's rare, but work on your friendship. Because I think sometimes there have been a year or more of our marriage that we've carried through on friendship and not on in love, mushy, gushy feelings.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we have excelled at being friends over the course of our relationship, and I think that we need to do better about being like lovers and romantic partners, you know. But yeah, if you weren't able to be friends with the person that you're with now, don't overlook that piece of your relationship.
Yeah.
In fact, I think like if you look at it like the food triangle or Maslow's hierarchy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think the foundation of a relationship is going to be a friendship, right? And everything's kind of built off of that because again, those romantic feelings are feelings, and a friendship is easier to like commit to in that context of like I'm making a decision to be friends with you.
Yeah.
You know, even when you're difficult to be friends with or difficult to love, this
Right.
is a friendship, and I think that the friendship level is where the mutual respect comes in and the desire to understand you more. And like where that like. Yeah, I think respect is really the word I would go back to. It's like where that's established between the two of you,
Yeah. And the desire to be vulnerable. Sometimes you and I even say in our relationship, like, I want to come to you about this as a friend. Like, hey, I've got something I've got to bring up because we're friends. When somebody is just, I think, your romantic partner, when they're just your like hot, sexy lover, you're putting on a certain front for that. You're showing up as a certain slice of yourself that's like also hot and sexy and not your whole self. And sometimes it's been like, honestly, I don't know if I would say this to somebody I'm having sex with, but I have to say this to somebody I'm best friends with.
Yeah.
This might kill the mood, but like I gotta talk to you about it.
Right. I think that's a good point.
Anything that you would share?
No, we've been talking about all the stuff on my mind for sure.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, but it's been it's been very. I've been very blessed through this relationship. I think the evolution of it has been really nice, going from like friends to kind of allowing that friendship to like evolve for several years and to like be very important figures in each other's lives in a unique kind of way.
Yeah. Be with somebody where you do the hard stuff together well, where you go through tough times together well, because that can be a lot of it. I don't mean tough times within the relationship itself, but like there's a lot of challenges that you just face over the course of your life. And I've sometimes heard from people who are like, well, things are hard right now, so our relationship is pretty separate. But like, when we get past this, we'll be able to come back together again. It's like, no. That's the thing. That's life.
Yeah.
That's what this is like. Be with somebody who can be in it with you, who can do the hard stuff
on those
together.
dating shows that you watch that I catch sometimes.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, I just love having fun. I'm just looking for somebody to have fun with. And I'm like, yeah, and I have when I was a kid, I have a goldfish that I named Chucky. And they're like, well, why did you say that? And I'm like, oh, I thought we were just saying bullshit that like did not offer any value to this conversation at all. Like, of course you like having fun. Of course you want somebody to have fun with. Like, yeah, what the fuck? Like, of course you want that. Everyone wants that.
We all have people in our life who are a good time that you would not call up on a bad day,
Oh my God,
and
so
like
true.
be with a person who you would call on a bad day.
Yeah.
And make sure that that's mutual, that you both do that for one another.
Yeah.
That's key.
No, having fun is great, but that doesn't get you through a marriage.
Yeah.
Marriages are not fun.
They're not fun. No fun at all. No fun allowed.
You're not allowed to do anything fun. If you even think fun, you're doing it wrong.
So that's Ashton Price on marriage and our relationship.
No fun.
Yep, I think if you see a relationship that's working well, you're just seeing a fraction of it, because relationships that work well have two people who are working actively and intentionally on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to know. It's easy to look at the outside of something. Like, I'm glad you brought up how much we were also struggling at the time, how much also our fights were severe, and the stuff that was happening was tough, because I really, really wouldn't want anybody's takeaway from this to be like, well, Price and Ash had a magical relationship, and when I find somebody who can do something magical with me, that'll be it. Like, find somebody who's willing to work hard with you.
You and I have had interactions that if somebody who listens to this podcast faithfully could hear a recording of, they would not be interested in hearing anything else we have to say about relationships ever.
We get down to like our most core wounded parts, and that stuff comes out. And yeah, those parts I think deserve love but aren't super lovable.
Yeah. remember, everybody, you're just a person. You're just people.
a person.
And the person that you're with is just a person. You know. So just have some perspective.
Yeah.
As you're navigating this, and try to be friends and respect the person that you're with. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts for us, Ash?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Price, thank you for your time. All of these years.
The years of this.
Years of time.
And we'll see you next time on How I Met Your Therapist. Okay, cool.
That went better than I thought, honestly.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know. I do love the fact that you thought I was gay for like 5 minutes.
It definitely made me more into you.
That explains so much.
Honestly, what a letdown. So straight.
I'll try to do better.